Today's daf is Masechus Nedarim Daf Yud. So we're up to 4 lines from the top. Masav Rav Huna, Masav Rav Hamnuna. We learned in the Brayso it says that Bamidbar Parak Vav Pasuk Biz. The pasuk says Isha Kiyaflu Lindar Neder Nazar Lahazir. So the lashon Nazar Lahazir is double lashon. So we learn now from this Mikan Zak the Gemara Shanazir is Chal Nazir. Learn Nazir is Chal Nazir. Sheyachal, I might think that Nazir is not Chal Nazir. Why? Valedinu. It's Kal V'Chomer Mashvu Chamuro. Ein Shvu Chal Shvua Malach Shvua, which is more Chamer Naziris. You say Shvua is not Chal Shvua, so Naziris Kala Nazir, which is more Kal Shvua, like Kal Shkein. Is it a Kal V'Chomer? It's not Chal Naziris, not Chal Naziris. Tam Limit Nazir Lahazir. Kan, you learn out. So Nazir is Chal Naziris. So Mar wants to know what's going on here. Chidami. What's the case in Nazir is Chal Naziris? Ilim Damari Nazir Yemrin is Nazir Lamachor. If you want to tell me that it's talking about instead of reading Nazir Hayoim, and then instead of reading Nazir from tomorrow, Hakrabaya. So in that case, why do you need a pasuk? You added another day. So it's pasha. It could be chal, like we more explained before on the last daf. Elalav, something tomorrow. What's the pasuk talking about? When do you need the pasuk? Teach you that Nazir is chal Naziris. The Amar reading Nazir Hayom, Nazir Hayoim. You said them both the same day. Ketani Nazir is chal Naziris. So it's not like Rav Huna that we said before that in Chahagam ain't Naziris chal Naziris. So the Gemara loy. It's not true. The pasuk is not talking about a case where you just said Nazir Hayom, Nazir Hayom. Hachamayiskinon gashkibalav shtei Naziris of asachas. It's a different case. The case is it's talking about that he said that both Naziris should be chal v'asachas and Chaygav and Rav Huna's maskim al tzigzeres kasav Nazir lahazir. It's a double lashon teaches you that both Naziris are chal, and therefore both Naziris will be chal. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarei. So Zok the Gemara, this at the Brayso said, we mentioned that Shvuah is more chomer than Naziris. So my chomer the Shvuah and Neder Ilaim Mishom the Chayla Filah Davashim Mamish. If you want to say because Shvuah is chal even something that's not tangible. For instance, if the guy says I won't sleep, and Neder is only chal on something that has mamashus, like the Mishnah Daf Tezvav said. So for the Gemara, Neder Nami Chomer, Neder is also more Chomer Shvuah. Wash Chal on Mitzvah Karushus. So the guy can make a Neder. He's not gonna say Kainim Sukkah Alai. Mashayin Ken Shvuah is not Chal about Alsa Mitzvah. So the Gemara Ella Mishun Dechsiv Ba B'Shvuah Lo Yinaka. You know what Shvuah is Muchamer is because it says by Shvuah in Shmoy's Parachav Pasuk Ayin Ki Lo Yinaka Hashem Es Shi says Shmoy Lashav that. It says, so what you see from the pasuk is even though somebody gets malchus for making a shvuah lashav and says Hashem's name in vain, still the pasuk says kilo yinaka, he'll never get cleansed fully from the avera. However, by neder, once he gets malchus, he's pater from the avera. It's agapatet. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Shvuah shaloi oichal v'achal ein chayav la'achas. The Mishnah said that if somebody says a shvuah shaloi oichal and a shvuah shaloi oichal again, and then he eats, he's only chayav one. Amar Rava. Rava says. Amar Rava. Rava says. Im nishal. The Rava says that although the second shvuah is not chal right away, but nishal al harishayna, if he goes to chacham and the chacham takes away the first one, he's matter the first shvuah. So shniya chal alav, then the second shvuah would be chal because the chacham's oiger neder lemafreya, and it's hovrar that at the time of the second shvuah, the first one was a deer. So therefore, if Chacham takes away the first one, the second one will be chal. It's like Gemara Mai. How does Rava know this halacha? It's like the Gemara midloi ktani because the Mishnah did not say midloi ktani einay ela achas. Since the Mishnah did not say shul shaloichal v'achal einay ela achas. If a Mishnah would have said einay ela achas, Masha is only one shvuah. Rather, Ketani and Chayiv alach, as it said that right now his chiv is only one, but not that the second chiv can never be chal. So from this we see that Rav Chod Leslie, that the second shvur now has no space. It has no space to be chal right now. Why? Because the first one is still there. But kimitchel al chaverta. However, when he goes to Chacham and he asks him to take away the first one, then the second one would be chal. Lishnachrin, and the Gemara brings another lashon where Rava knows this halacha from the Mishnah. Lishnachrin, chiyuvu deleka. The Mishnah is just saying that ein chayiv al achas. That now there's no chayiv on the second shvua. Hashvua ikka, but the shvua itself could be there, technically speaking, if he shayal on the first one. So what's nafkamina? L'chadar Rava, just like Rava said, Amar Rava nishal rishena also leishniya tachteha, and the second one can come in its place. Leim say yeli. Now the Gemara is going to go raya to this halacha Rava that if he's shayal on the first neder, on the first if he's shayal on the first shvua, the second one could be chal. What's the raya? Misha nadar, because the Brisa says Misha nadar shnei naziros. Someone makes two naziros. Amana harishayna eser rishayna, and he counts the first naziros v'hifresh carbon, and then he sets aside a carbon and nishala, and he takes away the first. He's shayal on the first naziros also like shniya b'rishayna. Then the halacha is the second naziros. He could count the days of the first naziros that he was just took away with a chacham. That could count. He could count those days for the second naziros. So the Gemara sees from this that just like you would say that by Naziris, that if he's shayal on the first Naziris, the second one can come into play and you could count the Naziris that you did for the second Naziris. So to by Shvu you could do the same thing, which is exactly Rava's halacha. So the Gemara Kigoin Shikibalo Shtei Naziris Vasachas. I could tell you no, that's not what the Brisa means. That if you made one Naziris he was shayal and then the second one comes in. No. I could say it's talking about that he's Makabal himself two Naziris Vasachas. And B'chahai Gavna, the second Naziris being Chal, the Chiv of the second Naziris has nothing to do with the fact that the second one was Hutar. Rather, the Bryce is just mechadish that if he's shayal on the first Naziris and not have to count another one for the count fresh 30 days for the second one, rather it could be yoytze his chayiv with the first Naziris because the first one was batal. But it's not talking about that he said. But it's talking about a case where he said that Shtei Naziris Vasachas. And he didn't, not that he said, he just said Hari Nazar Yom, Hari Nazar Yom. It's not the case. So it wouldn't be a riot or Rabba, because it could be talking about a totally different case. Zokt the Heilige Gemara Weiter. Daf Yudches Amid Beis. We are up to a new Mishnah. Zokt the Heilige Mishnah. Now the Mishnah is going to discuss cases where you have a guy who makes a Lashon Neder. He's noider, and a lashon which you have two, it could mean two different things. So how do you define as neder in this case? It's a Mishnah. Stam nedarim. If someone makes a stam neder, it's like an open neder. It means you could explain his words to mean that the neder should be chal, and explain that the neder should not be chal. So halacha is lahachmir. You go lahachmir. Ve'perusham lahakol. So stam nedarim is lahachmir, perusham lahakar. So stam nedarim, you say that he means l'chumra and neder will be chal. But perusham, if the guy makes the neder, he goes ahead afterwards and tries to explain it, that his intent was for mashmoyis that's not a neder, then we say we believe him, and you say okay fine, you go lahakol and neder is not chal. Zokt the Mishnah. Ketzad, what is a case of, they say, stam darm lahachmir? Amar harei alai kabasar maliach. If a guy says, this thing should be on me, kabasar maliach. Or he says, like salted meat. Or he says, it should be on me kiyayin esech, which is asar. And these cases, I'm sorry, yayin esech. And in these cases, you could explain in two ways. Why? Because in bishal, Shamayim Nadar, if his kavanas and matas and karbonis, which you're chayiv to salt them, like the pasuk says, Vayikra, Perak base pasuk Yom Kol Karban Chatakar Melach, and Sota B'Yayin Nesech, his kavana is for yayin that you spill on the mizbeach for a carbon. In that case, you could say aser. But if his bi shalavos kechavim Nadar, if his kavana is to, it means avos kechavim, means yayin nesech, not the b'ech, rather he means yayin nesech that's aser al avodah zara and basar maliach of avodah zara. In that case, his neder is nachal mutter. Why? Because his matter is neder and davar aser. And davar aser, we know from learning the beginning with Sechus Darim that does not work. In Hilchos Darim, davar aser being matas and davar aser does not work. Zok the Mishnah, v'im stam, and if he says stam basar maliach ki ayin nesech, and he doesn't say what his intent is, then it's aser. Why? Because we explain his words to mean. If he doesn't explain, then we explain his words. We go to chumrah. We say he means basar karbanos and the yayin that you menasech on the mizbeach. So that's one case. Now the Mishnah is going to say another case. What about if somebody says harei alai kechera? So you could explain that two ways. In kecherim shel shamayim, do we mean a boycott of shamayim, and that which it means to give it, make it holy, and give it to the bet habayis? It's aser. The im kecherim shel kayanim. If he means a cherem, that something that was given to kayanim, then after it's given to the kayanim, it's holy, but it's mutter. The im stam, and if he doesn't explain his words, we say it's aser because we go l'chumrah. Another case, like the Mishnah, if somebody says harei olai kemaiser, says it should be on me this specific object like meiser. In kemaiser behim nadar aser. If he means like meiser behim, it's adar because it has kedusha that the Baal can make his meiser behim chalon. Ve'im shal goyren, if he means meiser rishon, which gets separated from tvua, it's mutter because it's not a davar another, because meiser rishon of the goyren is already Torah aser. Meiser behima, the owner of the behima, the Bailam aser. Ve'im stam, and if he doesn't explain anything, it's aser because of gola hachmer. Says the Mishnah, another case, harei alai katruma. If somebody says this object should be on the truma, you can explain it two ways. You could say im katrumas halishka nadar, if it's money that people set aside for the box that goes for karbanas tzibur, then it's chal and neder and it's aser because trumas halishka is something that people aser. And if it's truma gedoyla of goyren, imshal goyren, that you take off from tvua, then its kavana is on that, then it's motor because that's something that the Torah aser, the iser is not chal, the person making a neder. So that's being matvis a neder davar aser, which is yef shalahatvis. Ve'im stam, if it doesn't say anything, then you say aser because of golahachmer. Divrei meir, that's the shita of meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, stam truma be Yehuda asura. If somebody stam says it should be like truma, says arei alai ketruma, so if it's in the land of Yehuda, so it's going to be asur. Why? Because Anshe Yehuda are close to Yerushalayim, and they call trumas halishka stam truma, and if you're in the area of Yehuda, then when you say truma, you mean trumas halishka, which is truma that for karbanas, and you taka aser it. Taka have the power to make a neder out of that because it's davar another. But if you're in bagalo, then it's muteres. Why? She'ein anshe galo makirin is trumas halishka. They're not familiar with the trumas halishka. They're not sure. They don't know what it is because they're far from Yerushalayim, where Eretz Yehuda is close to Yerushalayim. And when they say trumas stam and they don't explain the words, then they don't mean trumas halishka. They mean trumas hagorim, which is yef shalahat v'spa. Stam charamim. Now the Mishnah is going to bring another shita that's chaylik on the reisha and hold that stam nedarim is lahakol, not lachumra, like the Mishnah was saying till now. Stam charamim, which you could explain like charmei shemayim or charmei kayanim, which is mutter. So Yehuda would be mutter. Why? Because Anshe Yehuda are Samech Yerushalayim, and you know that they mean, and they're familiar with charmei kayanim, and therefore when they say charamim, they mean So the people in Yehuda, they would call any kind of cherem, they call that, because they're close to Yerushalayim, they're familiar with Charmei Kohanim, so they would call regular thing would mean Charmei Kohanim, so therefore we say it means lahakol. Mashenga bagalo will be usher if they say harei like a cherem, because they're not familiar with Charmei Kohanim. When we say we go lechumra, that maybe they mean cherem shamayim, which be usher, and the davar nedu could be chal, and therefore will be usher. This is another sheet in the Mishnah.